We now come to the backbench debate on access to sport and PE in schools. Leigh Ingham to move.
I beg to move. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I beg to move that this House has considered access to sport and PE. First, I'd like to put on record my gratitude to the Backbench Business Committee for granting this time in the House of Commons chamber. I called for this debate because I made a visit to St Graham Balfour School in my constituency, where I met one of my young constituents, Tyne, who wrote me a letter after visiting the school, talking in detail about his worries and concerns around the impact of COVID-19 on his generation. I'll start by quoting his words. "Exercise doesn't just chemically make you feel good. It's great for socialising, raising self-esteem and coping with losing. All life skills that seem to be a bit missing in kids my age since lockdown." His statement was really profound in its simplicity, but it's the heart of my argument today. Access to sport and PE is about more than just keeping children physically fit. It's about giving them skills, resilience and confidence to navigate life's challenges. It's about their mental health, their ability to form friendships and their capacity to overcome obstacles. And it's about ensuring that no child is denied the chance to benefit from these opportunities because of their background, their gender, or any other barriers to opportunity they face in life. So to begin with, I want to focus on the clear and undeniable health benefits, both physical and mental, of sport and exercise. The latest evidence from Sport England's Active Lives Children and Young People survey provides invaluable insight into the state of physical activity amongst young people. Their findings confirm what many of us already feared. Whilst overall activity levels since COVID-19 have remained stable, the long-term effects of the pandemic have cast a shadow over children's engagement with sport, their mental well-being and their future relationship with physical activity. For children who enjoy sport or whose parents are able to support them to be physically active, it's quite straightforward. But for those children and young people who don't feel comfortable playing sport, or who don't have playgrounds to play in, or don't have the physical ability to be active easily, these things become much more challenging. For many children, especially those facing socio-economic challenges or limited access to recreational facilities, PE classes may represent the only opportunity to engage in structured exercise. So by providing structured and comprehensive PE classes, schools not only contribute to the immediate health of students, but equip them with the knowledge and skills to lead active lifestyles into adulthood. And we know that access to sport doesn't just benefit physical health. As Tyne said, it benefits our mental health as well. Engaging in regular exercise releases endorphins, our feel-good hormones that alleviate stress, anger and improve sleep quality, something that MPs could probably benefit from. I include myself in that. Furthermore, participation in team sports or group activities can foster social connections which are instrumental to well-being and so important in the wake of COVID-19.
Am I going to give way at that point?
Oh, yeah, well.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way and I congratulate her on securing such an important debate. She was very kind enough to contribute to my debate about mental health supports in education settings, and she's well aware that the link between mental health and exercise is so important. We know that physical exercise can help manage stress, anxiety and depression. And right now, with 1 in 5 young people reporting having a mental health disorder or mental health crisis, creating and supporting a robust PE curriculum and giving children the opportunity to take part in outside sport is more important than ever.
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention and completely agree with him. I'll come on to discuss this more further in this debate. But individuals who are inactive face a threefold increase in moderate to severe depression compared to their active counterparts. And we know that regular physical activity can reduce the risk of depression by up to 30%. And the benefits are even more pronounced when exercise takes place outdoors, with studies indicating that immersion in nature enhances happiness, imparts a greater sense of life's worth, and diminishes levels of depression and anxiety. So in a changing world, with more and more children struggling with their mental health, we need to support our young people in any way we possibly can. One of the significant challenges that young girls face when it comes to accessing sport is often a lack of confidence or fear of judgment, particularly around body image. They're surrounded by social media and edited, unrealistic images of women's bodies which tell them they need to be perfect to participate. This is compounded by the fact that many sports are still male-dominated. I will, happily.
I'm really grateful to the Honourable Lady for giving way and for opening this debate today. I was written to recently by one of my constituents, Olivia. She and her sister play football for the Stockport County under-8s and under-9s team and are showing clear talent and skill. I wonder if she agrees with me that it's really important that we support young girls playing so that they get into the habit of playing team sports. She wrote to me because they're looking for some support with bibs and balls, which I'm working on. But I'm sure she agrees with me that getting young girls playing sport and keeping them playing sport is a really important way of getting them in the habit for the rest of their life.
I thank my honourable friend for her intervention. I completely agree, actually, and I'm about to talk a little bit about that, but the importance of access to equitable sports is so important. I was actually, before I was elected to become an MP, I worked for an organisation called Plan International, who specialise in work with young people, but particularly young women and girls. And I was shocked to learn that on average, 2/3 of playgrounds are taken up by young boys because actually often it's them playing football, which means even physically the space that girls have for playing sport is significantly diminished. I was delighted to learn though in my own constituency that four schools signed up to take part in the girls' biggest ever football session. So Sir Graham Balfour School, Flashley Primary School, Stafford Manor High and Church Eton Primary. Change does start at home, so I'm proud to have schools in my patch that prioritise young women and girls' inclusion in sport and football. But we also know that despite our Lionesses and their brilliant 2022 Euros win, many girls still don't feel comfortable playing football. In 2022, the Lionesses brought football home, and they said that this is only the beginning. I'd like to echo their ask of government now from an open letter they wrote to the then Prime Minister. The Lionesses asked for the opportunity to make sure young girls have access to at least 2 hours of PE a week and to make sure that physical activity amongst young women is tracked and kept accountable. Now our government has the chance to deliver on their ask, benefiting girls and young women around this country. We also know from Sport England's research that active children are not only healthier, but happier and more resilient and more confident. And yet, despite the overwhelming evidence supporting the benefits of physical activity, many young people, but particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds, are being left behind. I spoke to Swim England, who told me that only 50% of children from the least affluent families can swim 25 metres by the time they leave primary school, which is pretty stark compared to the 90% of children from wealthy families who can swim at that point in their lives. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the impact of COVID-19 on children's relationship with physical activity has been profound. Those who were in nursery or early primary school when the pandemic struck, so they're now in school years either 3 to 8, remain significantly less likely than their older peers to have positive attitudes towards sport and physical activity. Worryingly, happiness scores have also dropped amongst these age groups, their sense of resilience too. So those who keep trying when things get tough is down by 6.9% for children in years 5 and 6 and 7% for those in years 8 and 9. Madam Deputy Speaker, in a changing world, we know how important it is that children are able to keep going when things get tough. And sport is one of the key ways that they can learn that resilience. As Tyne said, where else can a child learn to pick themselves up and go again? Now, in preparing for this debate, I wanted to ensure that the voices of SEND children were at the heart of the discussion. Walton Hall Academy in my constituency is a special educational needs school. They told me how crucial a role sports plays in supporting their students, providing an opportunity to develop essential skills, including hand-eye coordination and teamwork, whilst fostering a sense of belonging and confidence. For many SEND young people, both in mainstream and specialist schools, sport is not only an activity but a powerful vehicle for achieving their EHCP targets, such as promoting communication, building connections, areas that can be particularly challenging for SEND young people. However, when I spoke to the Activity Alliance and Paralympics GB, both shared some worrying information about inclusivity of sports for SEND young people. So nationally, 15% of our young people and children have special educational needs, which is around 1.5 million people. But 75% of that 1.5 million are not active in school, meaning that over 1 in 10 of our children nationwide are not active. I fear that these numbers are due to a poor understanding of inclusion for disabled children. Furthermore, accessing sport and play outside of school can be financially prohibitive for some families, with membership fees and specialised equipment presenting specific barriers. So I've been running a campaign in my own constituency on inclusive play parks, a place where children can get active for free. But it's something that would need to be rolled out nationwide, and it's got significant challenges because of the differences when it comes to special educational needs and disabilities. I also recently hosted a coffee morning on Send in my own constituency, and many parents told me that their experience with councils and schools are frequently adversarial and confrontational, which I think can exacerbate this issue. But no child should be left on the sidelines, and I know how seriously the DfE takes their responsibility to tend children. And I strongly encourage the government to consider adapting teacher training and education to ensure the next generation of the teaching workforce have the skills and confidence necessary to deliver truly inclusive physical education. It could involve specific disability inclusion training, introducing subject-specific disability inclusion training to the core content framework for PE specialists, such as special accessible lesson plans and a wide range of adaptive sport. I don't know if any of you have ever played wheelchair basketball, but it's actually the most fun and incredibly competitive. Of course, yeah, happy to.
I recently played wheelchair basketball with the Harrogate Hammerheads at Liberal Democrat Party conference with the Honourable Member for Kingston and Surbiton, and it was a joyful experience, and what I learned was it is basically impossible.
Thank you for the intervention. I would agree, it's definitely a challenge, but what I like about it is it can even a playing field. You can have a class full of mainstream and SEND kids playing that together, and everyone finds it really challenging, so it's actually a great leveller. Moving on from SEND, the ongoing curriculum review is a rare opportunity to enhance PE access. Sport teaches teamwork, discipline and resilience, qualities essential for both education and employment. Employers seek individuals who can collaborate and persevere, and sport provides that training ground. So a diverse PE curriculum, including activities beyond traditional sports like football and rugby, no shade, they're both great sports, but it can engage more subjects, more students. Options such as martial arts, yoga and dance could be explored to ensure PE appeals to all. But it's not just about access to sport, it's the social value of sport and the fact it gives children and young people more time and energy to focus on other subjects and attain better. What other subject gives kids focus like PE does? By embedding structured, high-quality PE into the school week, we're not only improving children's health, but giving them the tools they need to succeed in their other subjects and studies. It also provides valuable lessons beyond the classroom. Teamwork, resilience, discipline and leadership. Again, qualities essential for most careers. Now, to make it clear, and perhaps unusually, this debate is not to ask for more money in the system for sports when our financial situation is so tenuous. What we need is more sustainable funding frameworks for PE and for the pupil premium and school games organisers. In 2016, school game organisers received a funding promise for each academic year of that Parliament. That was during a process of substantial change during the previous government's education secretaries and prime ministers. But that funding commitment did give schools the ability to plan ahead, to build structured sports programmes and to invest in staff and resources necessary to make PE effective. However, in years since, uncertainty over future funding has left many schools unable to make long-term commitments, forcing them into a cycle of short-term solutions that don't serve the students well and they don't serve the school communities. So we need assurances that funding for sport and PE will be protected and given the same security as other areas of education. Without this, we risk losing dedicated school games organisers and vital school sports programmes that have been proven to improve health and well-being. Can the Minister please give confirmation that for funding for schools games organisers will be provided for the next year and consider the possibility of more long-term sustainable funding commitments? In conclusion, we know that sports provides a health value in improving physical health. We also know that it provides a social value in the well-being of our children and adults. And finally, we know that it provides an economic value in reducing mental health service usage, fewer GP visits and preventing illness. Altogether, this value is upwards of 100 billion a year. Sport and PE are not just about fitness, they're about the future. They're about creating a society where young people grow up healthier, happier and more equipped to navigate life's challenges. The benefits of sport aren't abstract, they're real, measurable and profoundly impactful. If we want to see a healthier nation, a more resilient workforce and a stronger society, then investing in access to sport and PE is not just a policy choice, it's a necessity. I urge this government to take the issue seriously, to commit to sustainable funding and to ensure that every child, regardless of background, has the ability to thrive through sport. We must listen to young people like Tyne, who have articulated so clearly the need for action, and we must respond with real change. As Tyne said when he wrote to me, this seems like quite a simple solution to a lot of problems. Thank you.
Yeah. The question is, as on the order paper, I call Claire Young.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I congratulate the Honourable Member for Stafford for securing this debate. I could easily spend my whole speech talking about the challenge of increasing girls' participation in PE and sport in schools. Despite the progress made through initiatives such as the This Girl Can campaign, there is still a gender gap, with only 32% of girls aged 5 to 15 achieving the recommended 60 minutes of physical activity each day, compared to 41% of boys, according to Sport England's Active Life survey in 2023. We have come a long way since my school days in the 80s, when girls over 8 weren't allowed to play competitive mixed football and there were no girls' teams I could join. I've been delighted to see the great strides made in women's football in recent years, and it was a joy to join a girls' training session at Pucklechurch Primary School recently. The 20-plus girls running around on a very small pitch showed that girls really do like football. However, I want to focus today on a different area of inequality, the participation in PE of children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. And I'm pleased that the Honourable Member raised this in her speech. Children with SEND are 1.5 times more likely to be inactive compared to their peers without SEND. We know the benefits that physical activity can bring: improved mental and physical health, boosted self-esteem, and important social opportunities for SEND students. So what are the barriers? Only 14% of PE teachers feel fully confident in adapting activities for children with SEND, according to research by the Youth Sport Trust. There is a significant gap in teacher training for inclusive sport. Schools often lack access to the necessary adaptive equipment, making it difficult for SEND students to engage in physical activity on an equal footing with their peers. And there's inconsistent provision, with some schools able to offer much more well-developed programmes for SEND students than others. One consequence of this that may surprise some is that it can lead to increased absence for SEND students. The Youth Sports Trust has highlighted that pupils with SEND are more likely to experience disengagement in physical education, which can lead to increased school absences. A report from Scope, a leading disability charity, found that children with SEND who feel excluded from physical activity are at higher risk of developing mental health challenges, which can further exacerbate absence. And a study by the National Autistic Society found that students with autism, in particular, are more likely to be absent from school when PE lessons are not adapted to their needs, with absences increasing by up to 20% for these students. To tackle this, Scope calls for more accessible PE facilities and training for teachers on how to adapt physical activity for SEND students. They emphasise the importance of inclusive sport, suggesting that schools offer a broader range of activities that cater to different abilities, from wheelchair sports to multisensory activities. The National Autistic Society stresses the importance of clear communication, structured environments, and sensory-friendly approaches. And the Special Olympics UK highlights that a key barrier for children with SEND is the lack of mainstream sports clubs that offer inclusive programmes. They urge schools and communities to create partnerships with local clubs, offering pathways to competitive sports for SEND children and fostering an inclusive and welcoming environment. And in relation to this, I would like to highlight the work of Yate Acro Gymnastics. Contrary to the Honourable Member for Stafford, I do think this will need some funding for adaptive equipment and for the specialist training for staff. But I would like to conclude by highlighting the work done by the charity Chimpanzees, who are currently fundraising to open in my Thornbury and Yate constituency the UK's first fully accessible exercise, play and social centre for disabled children and young people. Yeah. I had the privilege to visit their pop-up offerings before I was an MP and saw for myself the fantastic holiday activities they provide with an array of specialist equipment and dedicated staff. These had a massive impact on their users' lives, whether that's 3-year-olds laughing for the first time, the 16-year-old who refused any form of sport at home and school but rode a kilometre on their rowing machine, a 9-year-old who held his head up on his own for 10 minutes for the first time, or the 57 children and young people who were able to walk in their specialist equipment for the first time. Opening this permanent home for their activities will not only allow them to offer schemes in the school holidays, but year-round. This would give them the scope to open up their facilities for other organisations to use, including schools. They have already raised over half their £8 million target to fit out the facility. I've previously written to ministers asking them to consider contributing to the funding of this as a pilot facility, a model that could be rolled out across other regions and which could help inform provision in and provide training for our schools. So I'd ask them to look again at the huge benefits this project could bring for children with complex needs and the potential it has to deliver access to PE for children who currently miss out.
And I do want to try and get everybody in, so we'll start with an immediate time limit of 4 minutes. Liam Conlon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you too to my honourable friend, the member for Stafford, on securing this, and she has made some fantastic and really profound points today. And like the member before me, the member for Thornbury and Yate, I'm actually going to focus on disability sports here today. Today in schools across the country, 3 in 4 disabled children do not take part in PE regularly, and 4 in 10 confide that they would like to take part in sport more if it was offered. And we should not underestimate the impact this has on children, with disabled children facing exclusion already and 72% of them reporting feeling lonely. And I know this from my own experience. When I haven't played sport since I was 13. I had an accident in year 8 and I shattered my hip and didn't walk for 4 years, and then I had a hip replacement in 6th form. And one of the challenges a lot of children who are disabled children will face in that situation is that playing football, playing sport is the way you build common bonds with your friends. It's the things you do together, it's the things you talk about. So to be excluded from that has far wider repercussions. And I want to pay tribute today because it's been a big priority for me in my constituency. The work of Paralympics GB, the Youth Sports Trust and others, because they really recognise this, and we're doing lots of really important local work to improve it. We have some fantastic projects and organisations in Beckenham and Penge using their own initiative to increase the participation of disabled people in sport. In Crystal Palace, the National Sports Centre is undergoing a multi-million-pound refurbishment to secure its facilities for future use and, crucially, to make them accessible too. I think 19 world records have been set in Crystal Palace, but if you're a wheelchair user, you can't get to the pools and to a lot of the facilities. As members will know, this is an issue that's very close to my heart, and I'm proud that this facility in my constituency will be made fully accessible and be one of the best facilities, not just in London but in the country, for disabled sport going forward. And I'd like to put on record my thanks to Sir Sadiq Khan, the team at the GLA, including project manager Ben Woods, to councillors Ruth McGregor, Ryan Thompson, and also the Crystal Palace Sports Partnership, John Powell, Fran Bernstein, who have really brought people together and made this happen. Crystal Palace Football Club as well, and the charity, the Palace for Life Foundation, do genuinely incredible work right across South London, including at the National Sports Centre, to support disabled people and others. And as part of this work, the foundation hosts football sessions for those with Down syndrome and visual impairments, as well as power chair football. And one of the points I try to make to people often is, of all the protected characteristics defined by the Equality Act of 2010, disability is by far the most diverse And we also talk of specific disabilities like autism and cerebral palsy as having spectrums as well. And so the challenge for disabled sport is a really comprehensive one, but we have experts by experience, people with disabilities who understand how to best bridge that gap and make inclusion possible. And it's fantastic that the schools minister has recognised this. I know that she has spoken about the need for increased PE in schools for disabled children. I also think that if I speak to some of the local schools in my constituency, whether that will be possible always, I don't know, but certainly having these other facilities outside of school is absolutely essential. It would also be remiss of me not to mention Kent County Cricket Club in Beckenham, who alongside managing 2 disability teams run a regular Friday night disability cricket session in Beckenham for children and young people. And it's been fantastic, I'm conscious of time, to see a renewed focus on access to disability sport, both in government, in my local community, and following the Paralympic Games. Increasing access to PE in sport is not something that will happen if we sit back and wait for it. Inclusion is not just the absence of exclusion, and achieving equity will require an active effort from all to get involved. And thank you again to my friend for bringing this debate forward.
Andrew Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I would also like to thank my honourable friend, the member for Stafford, for leading this debate and for the way that she sets out the issues. Sport and physical education in schools is not only vital for the future of our children, but also critical to the health and prosperity of our nation. As we face high levels of childhood obesity, increasing mental health concerns, and a need to foster a healthier, more cohesive society, it's more important than ever to make physical activity a central part of the school experience. The benefits of PE and sport extend far beyond childhood. The life skills gained through physical activity, teamwork, leadership and communication help young people succeed in school and prepare them for their future careers. According to the Youth Sport Trust, 87% of participants in the Set for Success programme said they know more about how their skills can help them in future, with 96% of young people reporting an improvement in at least one of teamworking, communication or leadership since taking part. These skills are crucial for helping young people thrive in their careers and contribute to the future economy, aiding the government's mission to kickstart economic growth. But I'd like to take a moment to recognise the incredible work being done in my constituency of Mid-Cheshire by organisations like the Vale Royal School Sports Partnership and Active Cheshire. These organisations are working tirelessly to increase the opportunities for physical activities in schools and communities. Since 2006, Vale Royal School Sports Partnership has been instrumental in bringing sport to schools across Northwich and Winsford. School sports partnerships were an early casualty of the coalition government, with the announcement that ring-fenced funding would be removed in a letter to the Youth Sport Trust from then Secretary of State Michael Gove in October of 2010, in direct contradiction of what the Conservatives said in opposition. But in Northwich and Winsford, the schools got together and decided that demolishing an entire infrastructure and proven delivery system that was improving children's lives here and now was not the way to go. So they pulled their funding, they saved Vale Royal School Sports Partnership, and it's still delivering for children today. Through well-organised PE programmes, inter-school sport competitions and community initiatives, they've helped to increase participation in sport among young people in my area. They offer resources, training and support to teachers, ensuring that every child has the chance to experience the benefits of physical activity, regardless of their background or ability. And if the Minister would like to visit in future and see the value of work undertaken by school sports partnerships for herself, I'm sure they'd be delighted to receive her. Similarly, Active Cheshire is dedicated to creating a culture of movement in schools and communities by providing schools with the tools they need to integrate more sport into their daily routines. Active Cheshire helps foster environments where children feel encouraged and supported to be active. But I can't let this moment go without mentioning Northwich Rowing Club, who celebrated their 150th anniversary this month. Northwich Rowing Club have enjoyed huge success in recent years, having produced 3 Olympians, bronze medalist Emily Ford and gold medalists Tom Ford and Matt Langridge. But what makes me proudest to have them as representatives of my hometown, however, is the work they do with schools in partnership with Warrington Youth Rowing to open up access to the sport and break down the perception of rowing as an elitist sport. Every year they take dozens of children across our local secondary schools, all pupil premium children, and and give them the opportunity to learn to row, which otherwise they may not have had. Together, these organisations are making a real difference, providing children with the opportunities to develop lifelong healthy habits. I'm conscious of time, Madam Deputy Speaker, so I'll just take this opportunity finally to highlight a date for your diary. On the 4th of June, I'm sponsoring Youth Sport Trust's National School Sports Week parliamentary drop-in. Montel Douglas, who represented Team GB at both the Summer and Winter Olympics, will be in attendance, and I hope that you, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Minister and other colleagues will come along and support this very worthwhile event.
Certainly do my best. Josh Dean.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I thank my honourable friend for securing this debate. I'll say from the outset that sport and PE was not actually my favourite part of the school week, and in preparing for this debate, many memories of cold running on Monday mornings came flooding back. And as I'm often reminded, it wasn't that long ago for me. I was the boy at the back of the class hoping the bell wouldn't ring because I desperately did not want to go and do PE. So you might wonder why I've chosen to speak in today's debate, and I'm sure some of my PE teachers blessed to witness my sporting skill will agree. But one of the many joys of this job, Madam Deputy Speaker, is the way in which it helps me to see things in a new light, even in the community I know best, where I grew up, and where I call home, Hertford and Stortford. I've had the privilege of visiting almost half of the roughly 50 schools in my constituency since I was elected, and at each one I've been amazed and impressed by the quality of their sports and PE provision, the positive difference it makes for their young people, and their success at it. It was great, for example, to hear how Herts and Essex High School's under-14s girls team recently won silver medals after reaching the national hockey finals, and that Bishop Stortford High School pupil Luke Dunham, who is a member of Herts Phoenix Athletics Club based in Ware, came third in the under-17s race in the Inter-Counties Cross-Country Championships last month. And I was privileged as well to visit Avanti Grange, a new secondary school at the end of last year. We touched on the importance of resilience and mindfulness. I got to see one of their new yoga classes with their young people, and as built into their curriculum, built into those classes, is how we can make sure that their young people are resilient, are mindful, are prepared for the challenges of school and life, which I think is fantastic. And when young people find a sport that they enjoy at school, they'll often progress to one of the many fantastic local sports clubs in our community, like Hertford Town Football Club or the Bishop Stortford Community Football Club, to say nothing of our fantastic offering in Ware and Sawbridgeworth. And some will go even further, like Premier League footballer Oliver Skipp, who, like me, went to Richard Hale School. But without digressing too far from the topic of today's debate, it does all start at school. It starts for young people there. And it builds our young people's confidence. It's good for their mental health and their well-being. According to Sport England, children who are active are happier, more resilient, and more trusting of others. So as I come to the end of my speech, I'd be grateful if the Minister could, in her remarks, address two specific points regarding the provision of PE and sport in schools. Firstly, given the final report on the curriculum and assessment review due later this year, will she ensure that children's mental and physical well-being, as well as academic achievement, is right at the heart of that review? And additionally, in December 2024, Sport England highlighted the impact of the pandemic on young people, children aged 7 to 13 now less likely to have positive attitudes towards activity and a lower sense of opportunity. So could the Minister set out what the Department is doing to improve and foster positive attitudes towards physical activity and exercise amongst young people? And just to conclude in the time that I have left, I did mention at the start the many memories I have of not enjoying sports or PE at school, but I would just say again what a privilege it has been to see the amazing provision in our local communities, to know the confidence it's building in our young people, how good it is for their mental health and well-being, and say a huge well done, not just to those young people representing our schools and our community in competitions in our community and across the country, but to all those young people who just want to give it a go, who want to improve their physical and mental well-being and really, really enjoy it too. Thank you.
Josh Newbury.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to thank my honourable friend and almost constituency neighbour, the member for Stafford, for securing this debate today on what is such an important topic. When we talk about access to sport and physical education in schools, it's not just about fitness and physical activity, it's about opportunity. It's about making sure that every student, no matter their background, has the chance to find something they can excel in, or at the very least, given the chance to try. I'd like to start by sharing a personal story. When I was in school, the sports we were offered were restrictive, to put it politely, or archaic if you were being a bit less generous, because in autumn and winter it was football for the boys and netball for the girls, and in summer it was football and cricket for the boys and rounders for the girls. Sadly, although I enjoy watching both, football and cricket were never my strong suits, and yes, I was always the last one picked for any team, as the bottom of the barrel was scraped. Because of this, I never felt sport was something that I could excel in or even enjoy. However, when I reached around year 10, I had the opportunity to try sports like badminton and volleyball, sports that suited me, that I was reasonably good at, and most importantly, that I actually enjoyed and wanted to carry on after I left school. The lesson I took away from that is that sport and PE are not one size fits all. There are so many different sports, each with their own appeal, and it's so crucial that children and young people have the chance to explore as wide a range as possible. According to a report by the Youth Sport Trust last year, 58% of girls in the UK said that they would like to have more options to choose from. Many girls are not engaged in historically male-dominated sports like football and rugby. To address this, I think we need two things. Improved access to alternative sports that girls are missing out on, to give them the chance to discover something that they enjoy and excel in, like I did. But we also need to break down outdated gender taboos around these sports. The Lionesses, the Red Roses and campaigns like This Girl Can are smashing those taboos, and I hope that will radiate through our schools so we don't leave such a huge proportion of our students behind. Last month in my constituency, Norton Keynes Primary Academy and Jerome Primary School in Norton Keynes, the John Bamford Primary School and Chancel Primary School in Rugeley all took part in the biggest ever football session organised by the FA to empower girls to feel like they belong in football. As my honourable friend said, it's great to hear things like this, making sure girls around the country have the opportunity to participate. However, according to another Youth Sport Trust report, children from poorer backgrounds are the least confident in being active. Only 51% of 11 to 16-year-olds in the D&E socio-economic groups rate themselves as confident taking part in physical activity, compared to 75% for higher socio-economic groups. These stats show how important fairness and equality of access is. The government is absolutely making the right steps toward this, particularly with the announcement last month of £100 million to revamp local sports facilities across the UK, breaking down barriers to opportunity and giving young people the opportunity to build vital skills and connections. One final point I'd like to make is the importance of sport and PE for young people's mental health. Because of my uselessness at football and cricket, which I mentioned earlier, I often found PE lessons an isolating experience, which contributed to the poor mental health that I experienced at times growing up. The macho culture around football in particular is really hard as a young gay person in school, but I believe that that culture is starting to shift, and happily I've since found hugely positive benefits for my mental health in sports. To make sure children and young people in schools can reap the benefits of this, I hope that the recruitment and retention of teachers will be made more stable, and I hope that through partnership with schools, local authorities, academy trusts and the government, we can make sure as many PE teachers and mental health first aiders and champions as possible, because they have such a pivotal role to play that perhaps we should value more often than we currently do. To conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm so grateful to my honourable friend for securing this debate, because investment in sport is investment in something that will give children the resilience, confidence and mental resilience that they need to succeed both on and off the playing field. Thank you.
Dan Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to begin by paying tribute to my honourable friend, the member for Stafford, Eccleshall and the Villages, for securing this important debate. This debate is inspired by one of her constituents. Bringing this debate shows that she puts the people of Stafford, Eccleshall and the Villages at the heart of everything she does, and in doing so, building back trust in our democracy and democratic institutions step by step, and I commend her for this. It's also a privilege to be speaking whilst I have two of my favourite constituents, Aisha and Samir, up in the gallery. Thank you for coming. If you allow me some personal reflections, and probably to echo some of the comments by the Honourable Member for Cannock Chase, as someone who lived under the long, dark, damaging shadow of Margaret Thatcher's hated Section 28 in the 90s, school, and particularly PE, was often a violent and miserable place for a gay kid like me who could not fit in, no matter how much I tried or how much I pretended not to be who I was. Thankfully, because of the commitment of the new Labour government and that they had to breaking down barriers to opportunity, Its repeal of Section 28 and many other legislative and social changes that were delivered, education and indeed sport in school is far more inclusive. It teaches teamwork, resilience and discipline. It excludes less, it builds friendships, it gives children the chance to push themselves and crucially have fun. It is one of the simplest and most effective tools we have to improve both physical and mental health. Yet while so much progress has been made to make sport inclusive, access to PE and sport in schools is far from what it should be. Over the past decade, we've seen a decline in the number of PE hours in secondary schools, and the gap between state provision and private school sports provision continues to widen. But there are shining examples, especially in places like Weston-super-Mare and the villages, that demonstrate the incredible difference access to sport can make to children's lives. There's Broadacre Academy, a school which, under the leadership of Principal Danny McGilloway and his excellent team, have made significant strides in promoting sports for all. They celebrate their young people with an annual Sports Personality Year of Award. And one of the most exciting developments for the school and for the town is the introduction of girls' football teams in every year group for the first time this year. It's a huge milestone for the school, ensuring that level playing field across genders. But it's also making sure that girls can feel part of something bigger and empowering, and that's a sort of structural change in schools that I really, really love. And then there is the hard-fought-for inclusive SEND playground in Castle Batch and Well, which I have to pay particular tribute to Councillor Catherine Gibbons for her tireless efforts to secure support for SEND kids in my patch. These examples from my constituency show what can be achieved when there is a commitment to sport and physical activity for all. However, the reality is that too many schools are still struggling with inadequate facilities and limited resources. I also want to take a moment to recognise the incredible teachers, coaches, parents, carers and volunteers in our communities who already go above and beyond to make sport possible for young people. I know both of my sisters, their husbands and all of the kids that surround my family have community sport at the heart of our family, and I love the joy and confidence it brings to them all, and I probably love it more because of the stark contrast with my own experience of sport at school. Whether it's teachers staying late to run after-school clubs, grassroots football coaches giving up their weekends, or parents fundraising for new kit, these are people who are making a real difference. But they shouldn't have to do it alone, and we can get this right. We can ensure that sport and PE are available to every child, no matter where they live or what their circumstances are. So thanks again to the member for Stafford, Eccleshall and the villages for pushing this on behalf of her constituents, but on behalf of all of our constituents. Thank you.
Dave Robertson.
Speaker, can I thank my right good friend and the honourable member for Stafford, Eccleshall and the villages for securing this debate. It's been great to hear today so many honourable friends talking about the importance of sport in our schools. I think I had a slightly different experience to some of my colleagues with PE in school because I loved it. I was right up for it. I had the pleasure of playing for my school's cricket team once. I had the pleasure of playing for my school's football team once. I was a little bit better at basketball. I got 2 of them. It turns out there is a limit on how far enthusiasm will get you. Rugby union was my sport in school, and at the risk of the ire of the Northerners, I will say rugby union is the correct code. Now, we only ever had... oh, no, that's not going to help well. We only ever had 3 fixtures when I was at school, but I absolutely loved it. I love going to PE lessons. And I think that it's really important that we recognise that actually my background is really academic, but I used to love that break in the school day when we got to go out and do something slightly different. Following on from that, I went off to university and I became a teacher. I taught for almost 10 years, and it's something that I hope that background I can carry with me at my time in this place. And we've heard a lot about the health benefits of physical activity, and I absolutely agree with those points. But some of the transferable skills that I've seen the kids I taught pick up from their PE lessons and contribute to a well-rounded education. Now, I taught physics, astronomy and a little bit of maths, mostly to kind of Key Stage 4, Key Stage 5, older secondary pupils. So my background is in a very academic part of the school, but I absolutely support this debate today because on top of all that, I ran a sports club at my school. I ran a Friday night, kids could come along and play ultimate frisbee because that's the game that I found at university where the ceiling on where enthusiasm gets you is slightly higher. But I think in schools, too often there's a temptation to play subjects off as some are academic and some are not, and some are more important and some are not. And that's a binary that I just don't recognise. I don't recognise it personally, I don't recognise it from my experience, and I don't recognise it from my experience in the classroom. As much as I support great science provision and great maths teaching, subjects like music, art, drama and PE particularly are hugely important to every single individual in that school, not just to the kids who are going to go off to university, not just the kids who've got a more vocational route in front of them, to every single kid because of those soft skills that you pick up. Those soft skills like teamwork, resilience, and just being able to react to anything outside of their control. Anybody who's ever tried to chase an egg around a rugby field will know when it's bouncing, you've got no idea where you're going, and you're going to have to think on your feet, often when there's about 18 stone of very rare meat chasing you. It pushes you out of your comfort zone, and there's skills that all of us rely on day in, day out. And I know the skills that I use in my job, my role here, actually come much more from some of the sport that I've experienced in my life and some of those soft skills that I've developed, much more than my university education, which I paid a lot more for. Sporting school is also an amazing way to build a community. I see this in my constituency. A couple of weeks ago I was at the rugby watching Lichfield play Tamworth, and what was really great was seeing actually some of the old boys having this really gentle rivalry between the guys who went to Friary 20, 30, 40 years ago and the guy who went to King Ed's 30, 40 years ago, and I was sitting in the corner from Netherstone. But actually that community that they've built around there, it's a community of rugby players, but within that there's this gentle rivalry, and it comes from that school experience. It's really hard to replicate, but actually we see it up the road in Chasetown, where Chasetown Football Club are called the Scholars because they were set up by pupils from Chase Terrace High School. There's examples over everybody's constituency, but I think it's really important that we keep school and keep PE at the heart of schools, keep PE in the classroom, but keep the classroom on the field sometimes. Thank you.
Vince.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for Stafford, Eccleshaw and the Villages for bringing this really important debate to the House. Being picked last was very much my experience of PE at school as well. And I think it's really interesting, actually, throughout this debate that the majority of people that have spoken aren't very good at sport, which is really interesting. There's a rule in the parliamentary football team that MPs have to start. I have to say, I'm the footballer that's really pushed that rule to its limits, and it's kind of like, how quickly can we sub Chris off and bring on a better player? Oh, sorry, the member for Harlow, and bring on a better player. Before this debate, on the suggestion of my honourable friend for Stafford, Eccleshaw and the Villages, I did reach out to some of my local schools in Harlow to hear about the good practice they are doing and also find out some of the challenges they will face. As people will know, that Harlow has a proud history of sporting excellence. It is the childhood town of Glen Hoddle, the birthplace of Laura Trott, not that one, and Laura Kenny. Long distance runner Michael Casey I've got to mention because he's now a local journalist, and also my sporting hero, the Paralympian Anne Strike MBE. Two schools are very quick to get back to me about what they're doing in Harlow, and I would like to thank Luke Hammond, the PE lead from Perford Green Primary School, for his quick response and what he shared from his school and the wider Passmore's cooperative learning community. A strong advocate for physical education, and you know, he was telling me that they have done up to 70 events in the past year alone. They purchased and lent out bikes as part of a bikeability programme, and they created their own sporting event. I believe it's called Touchball, like spelt slightly differently, and a dedicated festival to support SEND students in doing PE, as well as a girls-only tag rugby tournament where over 150 students participated. And he particularly wanted to pay tribute not just to the staff in his school, but the staff in primary schools and schools across Harlow who worked collaboratively in coalition to support one another. Now, the member from Cheshire mentioned the decision by the coalition government in 2010. I have to say, I'm old enough I was actually teaching at the time of that change. But I'm pleased that Gerounds Primary School in my constituency continues to excel in terms of making sure they have at least 2 PE lessons a week for their students. They also have invite sports people into their school, including representatives of Essex Cricket Club, which we know is the best cricket team in the country. Not enough people to boo that.
Would my honourable friend give way?
I will.
I'm really grateful to my honourable friend. He's making a brilliant case. I could potentially challenge him on his last claim. But he's such a doughty champion for Harlow, and also my honourable friend from Stafford, who brought us together for this debate. Would he not agree with me that sometimes School sport can fall off when we talk about elitism and elitist athletes and all that, and Olympics. And does he not champion the Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee report that we're working on at the moment? We took evidence the other day. It's on community and school sport, engaging challenges facing sports clubs and underrepresented groups. Schools are really central to this, and as an ex-teacher, I know who'll agree.
I thank my honourable friend for that, and she mentioned I was a teacher before I did, which is brilliant. Oh, no, I did mention it. No, I thank
You're too young.
Thank you. I thank she's very nice, the honourable friend for her contribution. I think she makes a really important point. And what's interesting from the contributions from honourable friends and honourable members across the House in this debate is that none of us particularly excel at sport. I certainly don't. But actually, we've seen sometimes in later life how important participation in sport is. And I think you're right, it's not just about elitist sport. We can talk about Harlow Park Run, for example, where people come together as a community and take part in sport every Saturday morning. And there's so many examples where sport doesn't need to be elitist. Of course we want people to excel in sport. Of course we want the next Laura Kenny. Of course we want the next Glenn Hoddle. But we actually want people to enjoy sport. And the impact that has on their mental health is huge. So I thank the work that she's doing on her select committee to really champion that point. And I look forward to that being fed into the curriculum review. Just to finish really on some of the challenges that were highlighted to me about sport, and I think and access to sport actually, and I think this is why PE in schools is really important. One of the biggest challenges that was raised to me by teachers was about the increased transport costs, and actually for Harlow parents, some of them who are struggling financially, who are in low-income families, actually asking parents to transport their children to away fixtures just isn't possible. My honourable friend from Stafford and the other bits mentioned the Lionesses. And I think we've all been really inspired by Lucy Bronze and others in that team. And I think young girls in Harlow have been really inspired by that team as well. However, many young girls and women in Harlow have to leave Harlow to go as far as Bishop Stortford of all places to actually access sport. So I think there's clearly more that we need to do to ensure that there's sports facilities readily available and close enough for everybody to go to. So my plea really is, as someone that wasn't the most sporty person in the world but appreciates the value of sport, do invest in PE in our schools, help develop skills, because it helps develop skills like resilience, physical and mental health, as has been mentioned previously, and it shouldn't just be for elite athletes, it should be for everybody to enjoy, even slightly over-the-hill former maths teachers.
Before I call the front benches, I think it's important to put on record that I too was always picked last. Max Wilkinson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. You'd always be my first pick. Sorry, that was a terrible start, wasn't it? Let me do better. Otherwise, my jokes end up going down like the US stock market. The Honourable Member for Cannock Chase mentioned rounders. The Honourable Member for Weston-super-Mare mentioned the school that I went to, which took me right back to my GCSE PE assessment where we were told we would do rounders and that was the easiest sport and we'd get a really good grade as a result. I regret to inform the House I got a 3 out of 7 for rounders. I've no idea how, and that led to me failing to get a C grade at GCSE PE. I know. And I became the Liberal Democrat Culture, Media and Sports spokesperson despite that failure. Not that a D grade is a failure. So, I'm going to get serious now. We're in the midst of a crisis of sedentary lifestyles and obesity. Almost a third of children are young, and young people, they are classed as inactive. More than 1 in 4 children is either overweight or obese, and the mental health crisis among young people is widely acknowledged to be totally out of control, not least because of the subject we were discussing in the previous debate, social media. But these facts actually shame our nation, and they store up huge problems for our economy, for health services, for the individuals themselves too. That's why this debate is so timely, and I commend the member for Stafford, Eccleshall and the villages, apparently, for securing time in the chamber, because instilling a love of sport and exercise in young people can do so much to turn this around and ensure that we tackle the public health crisis, and that starts in school. Now, like many of us, my earliest memories were, in fact, of taking part in sport on a primary school playground. It was football, of course. But I know from first-hand experience what happens when schools don't have the facilities to offer proper PE lessons. When I was attending Broad Oak School in the constituency of the member for Weston-super-Mare, the school was falling down, and we had no playing fields. In fact, we had 1 left for the whole time we were there. We were all crammed onto it at break time, but also that meant we weren't able to play as many fixtures as we otherwise might have done Didn't matter. I was too weedy for rugby, and the guy who was captaining the football team just picked his mates anyway, and he didn't like me. So it made little difference to my school experience, but it did have an impact on many others. And in a school that struggles with a difficult catchment area, I can tell you that probably has an impact on what else goes on in the school at that time. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I should add that while I rarely took to the field for my school teams, I did then achieve something brilliant when I was at university. In the 4th division of the Cardiff University Intramural Games, I scored from the halfway line against the Japanese Society, a moment I will never forget, nor will anyone else who was on the pitch that day, by the way. On a more serious note, 42,000 hours of physical education have been lost from the curriculum in the last decade. That is an absolute travesty. And state secondary schools in England taught 284,000 hours of PE in 2021, down from 13% down 13% from 2011. And I have many high-performing independent schools in my constituency and many good state schools. But it is marked the difference in provision that there is between the independent and the state sector. We need to make sure that the state sector is providing the very best for those children. The proportion of year 7 and 8 pupils who can swim the standard 25 metres has fallen in the last 8 years, with disparities evident among different demographic groups, giving rise to concerns about equalities. That's not surprising because 217 school pools have been lost over the last 15 years, and Swim England now reports that the Department for Education can't even provide statistics for the number of schools not properly reporting, because schools are not properly reporting swimming lessons. Sport England suggests putting PE at the heart of the curriculum by protecting time for it and subjecting it to suitable rigour. And they suggest a really important change from the traditional school approaches, which was mentioned by the honourable member who leads this debate today. Reimagining the PE curriculum based on enjoyment and meaning, not forcing people to go into a scrum and run into each other on the pitch. That's wise because not everyone is into that kind of sport. Yoga, dance, anything else you like. Let's just be expansive about this. And that is the single biggest factor that drives up enjoyment and the number of minutes that children will spend playing sport. Now, the LTA is among the bodies calling for the Chief Medical Officer's recommendation to be enacted. That call is for 1 hour of sport and physical activity to be delivered inside and outside of school every single day. And to do their bit, they're offering free teacher training and a grant for equipment too. They're also asking for clarity about the future funding of the Park Tennis Project, and I hope the Minister might be able to give some clarity on that or take it up with her colleagues. The medical experts and sports organisations know what is screamingly obvious to everyone else, that sport and physical activity is the silver bullet for solving our public health crisis. If we can get it right by instilling healthy habits among people at an early age and then providing them with opportunities through their lives, much of the rest of the challenge we have in the NHS will fall into place. It's not fashionable to say this because we're just supposed to stand up and shout, save the NHS, but I think we all know in this room that it is much more complex than that. Facilities in that point are core to the challenge. In my own constituency, I'm supporting Pittville School's efforts to upgrade their badly outdated sports hall. When the kids play badminton at the moment, the shuttlecock hits the ceiling, would you believe it? And they've been waiting for absolutely ages to get this through the planning system. One of the local councils, remarkably, has raised an objection on conservation and heritage grounds. Would you believe it? I hope ministers would agree with me that the planning system should be making it easier for schools to be building more sports facilities, not getting in the way. And I hope ministers will also consider designating sports halls and swimming pools as critical health infrastructure. I think this is a really important point that ministers can take forward because in these straitened times, it costs the taxpayer absolutely nothing to do that. Now, in February 2013, a time that's so long ago I had a full head of hair, Ofsted published a report recommending that schools should be spending at least 2 hours a week on PE. All these years on, there is still no requirement for schools to provide those 2 hours. We want to ensure that every child has access to high-quality PE as well as extracurricular sports activities. And doing that would ensure that at least that all those children have access to some form of physical education. That isn't always the case. Now, we need to make sure that we restore those 2 hours, and can the Minister confirm that these plans are being considered by the current government? School also serves as an important gateway to sports clubs. The Sports and Recreation Alliance is calling for there to be better links between schools and sports clubs. This is something the Liberal Democrats passed a policy on as long ago as 2004, would you believe it? Is this one simple change part of the government's agenda? And while we all know the government is dealing with tight finances, it is important for us all to note that for every pound invested in sport, we are likely to generate a return on investment of more than £4. I can't think of a better investment for this nation to be making. Now, in this place, we often talk about the pressures on the NHS, about making a proper effort to ensure children benefit from a love of sport and activity. And if you can marry those two up, then we are going to make sure that many children who are currently growing up to be obese, unhealthy and depressed are saved from that fate. If we fail to get this right, we can carry on in this chamber on all sides saying save the NHS and complaining about waiting times as much as we like. But it's not going to make a difference. All we will ever be doing is dealing with an epidemic of chronic physical inactivity and mental illnesses caused by inactivity. And we'll be denying generations to come the love of sport and physical activity too, and that would be a dereliction of duty on the part of all of us.
Shadow Minister Rebecca Paul.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm grateful for the opportunity to respond on today's important debate on access to sport and physical education in schools. I thank the Honourable Member for Stafford for bringing this debate to the House and all Honourable Members here today for raising and speaking on this vital issue, one that cuts across our approach to education, health, mental well-being and social mobility. At its heart, physical education is about giving every child, regardless of background, the chance to lead a healthy, active life, whilst at the same time learning important life skills like teamwork, resilience, perseverance, and respect for others. Sport is about so much more than just being healthy. It creates opportunity and can transform lives. Indeed, many of our country's most famous sporting heroes began their athletic journeys while still at school. Olympic champion Dame Jessica Ennis-Hill wrote about the positive impact this had on her. She says, "Playing sport as a child helped me enormously. I met lots of different people, both teammates and competitors, and faced new challenges. The camaraderie and support that you get from sport massively helped build my confidence and my ability to overcome setbacks and defeats both on and off the track." And it's precisely because it has the power to do so much good that we on this side of the House worked so hard to make real, measurable progress on improving access to sport and PE in our schools when we were in government. Let me start with what we did. The last Conservative government took a clear stand in favour of equal access to sport for all children, girls and boys alike. In March 2024, the Department for Education published new guidance to schools making clear that boys and girls must be offered the same sports during both curriculum PE and extracurricular activities. For too long, some pupils have missed out because of outdated or inflexible provision. That is no longer acceptable. Our new standards ensure that opportunity in school sport is not determined by sex, it is driven by fairness, aspiration and choice. This guidance followed on from the success of the Football Association's #LetGirlsPlay campaign, which aimed to change perceptions and make sure girls get the chance to play football within the school curriculum, as well as at break time, after school and at local clubs. And it has proved very successful, with much larger numbers of girls playing football, inspired by our amazing Lionesses following their success at the Euro 22 tournament. But that is not all what we did. Our 2023 School Sport and Activity Action Plan set out the clear expectation that schools should provide a minimum of 2 hours of PE per week. We took this step because we know that exercise is not a luxury, it's not an optional extra, it is fundamental to children's physical health, to their mental well-being, and to their ability to focus and succeed in the classroom. In addition to what happens during school hours, we also took decisive action to boost participation across the country. In August 2023, we launched our Get Active strategy, which provided for a new national task force, including government officials, education experts and former sports professionals. This task force was given a bold mission to get 2.5 million more adults and 1 million more children physically active by 2030. These were serious ambitions and they were backed by serious actions. They reflected a long-term strategic commitment from the last Conservative government to increase participation, promote inclusion and tackle the root causes of inactivity. I don't pretend for one moment that the job is done. There is more to do. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, I am proud of our record in this field. However, I regret to say there has been fallout from this government's budget. We are seeing evidence that the decision to end business rates relief for independent schools is having damaging consequences, with some such schools now questioning whether they can continue to operate community sports facilities, including school playing fields. Lest we forget, these facilities aren't just used by the schools themselves. They're used by local primary schools, community groups, youth sports teams and families. And I see the benefits of this on my doorstep. There are many children in my constituency attending local primary schools who are learning to swim and getting the benefit of other sports facilities at their local independent school. If this policy ends up forcing the sale or closure of these facilities, it will only have succeeded in reducing access to sport for the very communities that most need it. At the very same time, I'm really disappointed to see that the government have chosen to scrap the Opening Schools Facilities Fund, a programme designed to keep school sports halls and playing fields open over the holidays and outside of school hours. That fund enabled schools to support healthy, active lifestyles all year round, not just during term time. I would also ask the Minister today to finally confirm and end the uncertainty around their plans for the School Games Network, which is set to end this year. This network supports 2.2 million participation opportunities for children and is hugely valuable. Please could she confirm it's not been scrapped as well? I want to take a moment to recognise the importance of access to sport for disabled young people, as powerfully set out by the member for Beckenham and Penge and for Thornbury and Yate. It is absolutely vital that barriers to inclusion are removed so they can benefit in the same way as all children in school. And I can't speak about the importance of sport without touching on the subject of sex. We see a concerning trend that threatens to undermine efforts to promote sports among young women and girls, that of gender ideology. Let me be clear, it is bodies that play sport, not feelings. Women and girls' sport must be separated by sex, not only for safety reasons, but for fundamental fairness. Former Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies MBE has been warning of the negative impact on women's sport for many years now, and it's important that she and other advocates for women are listened to. I urge the Minister to ensure the draft guidance for schools and colleges on gender questioning children, prepared under the last Conservative government, which makes clear that sports should be split by sex, is finalised and issued as soon as possible. Until we act to address the rise of environments where young female athletes feel unsafe or where they simply can't ever win, how can we feign surprise when girls are less inclined to participate in sports? We on this side of the House believe that access to sport and PE is a fundamental part of good education for boys and girls. We believe that children should be given the tools to live healthy, active lives, and we believe that sport builds confidence, resilience and team-working skills, not just health and fitness. Those are the beliefs that we put into practice in government through new equality standards, through mandated PE entitlement, through a joined-up national strategy, and by allocating funds to widen access to facilities. That, Madam Deputy Speaker, is how we build a healthier, fairer and more active future for every child in this country. I look forward to now hearing from the Minister on how the current government will seek to ensure access to sport and her responses to all members' excellent questions today, including my own. Thank you.
Minister, Catherine McKinnell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Stafford, Eccleston and the Villages, for securing this debate today, who will henceforth be referred to as the member for Stafford, and for her powerful opening speech. And I was so pleased to learn that this debate had been granted, as it is an area that I feel incredibly passionate about, as I know every other member in the room who has spoken today does too. Every child deserves an enriching and rounding education, and I know that PE and sport play a key part in achieving that. And access to sport, as many have said, improves health outcomes, boosts well-being and builds resilience. Like Tyne, the student mentioned by the member of Stafford, it isn't just a theory, because I know from personal experience, and my experience was somewhat opposite to the experience of the member for Hertford and Stortford and for Lichfield, because the days I remember from school are the days where I was playing hockey, tennis, netball, the days when I could spend time with friends, building my confidence and getting me through the school gates in the morning when, quite frankly, the academic subjects might not have been appealing. And that's why I do believe we do need to break down the barriers that prevent children from accessing and enjoying. And that is key, and I think that's come out today very strongly in the debate about accessing and enjoying PE, sport and physical activity at school. And I know the Honourable Member for Hertford and Stortford, as he went on to explain, wholeheartedly agrees. Because we cannot deliver on our ambitious plan for change as a government without it. Our mission-led government has committed to putting children and young people at the heart of our priorities, ensuring that every child can achieve and thrive. And so as part of the Opportunity Mission, we will get more children active by protecting time for PE and supporting the role that grassroots clubs play in expanding access to sport. And I've really enjoyed listening to honourable members' contributions today, and particularly their personal experiences of sport, including the honourable members for Cannock Chase, Weston-super-Mare and Lichfield, who have been very honest about their experience of sport. And I agree with them that we do have to broaden the opportunities so that every child can find an activity that they enjoy. And we're not alone in this mission, as I've heard so clearly from young people, schools, charities, the national sporting bodies and honourable members here today. In recent weeks, I've had the pleasure of meeting with the Sports Minister, with sporting bodies, and just this morning with Baroness Campbell, who speaks with great passion about ensuring sporting opportunities are available for everybody, not just the privileged few. And in 2023 to 24, fewer than half of children and young people met the Chief Medical Officer's guidelines to be active for 60 minutes a day. It's clear there are inequalities and disparities among those less likely to participate, whether they're girls, children from poorer backgrounds, and from black and minority ethnic groups. And I've seen numerous examples of schools and their pupils benefiting from resources, teacher training, and exclusive offers provided by sport governing bodies. And there are some fantastic examples, like the Lawn Tennis Association's Youth School Portal and the Chance to Shine programme in cricket, which I had the pleasure of joining in at a school last year, and I even got to bat with Ben Stokes. But we cannot leave this to chance. And that is especially the case for those who face additional barriers, such as those with special educational needs or disabilities, as rightly raised by a number of honourable members today, including the members for Beckenham and Penge, who spoke from very powerful personal experience, and the member for Thornbury and Yate as well. The department has funded the Inclusion 2024 grant programme, which utilised a network of 50 lead inclusion schools to upskill teachers, teaching assistants and other members of staff to deliver inclusive PE and sport, and an open procurement for the new grant from April 25 is in its final stages, and the outcome will be confirmed soon. Also, the Schools Games Mark, government funded but managed by the Youth Sports Trust, has introduced mandatory equality criteria for PE, school sport and physical activity participation in 2024 to 25, and schools get support to review their provision to make sure they're overcoming barriers that children might face, and that best practice will be shared with schools to now enhance girls' equal access to sport. More widely, to ensure opportunities for all children, high-quality PE, it has to be the starting point. PE is rightly compulsory at all 4 key stages of the national curriculum, and this makes PE time a crucial opportunity in a child's lifetime for establishing a positive relationship with sport and physical activity and helping them to develop the skills that we know they need throughout school and in life. And as I mentioned earlier, we are committed to protecting high-quality PE time, ensuring all pupils have the best start on their journey towards leading active and healthy lifestyles. And high-quality teaching is essential to that too, to harness the energy and the attention of pupils and ensure that sport is a vital and enjoyable part of a child's experience at school. It needs to be fun, accessible and beneficial for all. So raising standards and ensuring every child has equal access to the opportunities they need to start valuing a skilled and qualified workforce, confident in delivering PE, who play a crucial role in the wider school community as well. As many have outlined, the length that teachers go to support children to be active both within the school day and beyond as well. And we need to ensure that teachers have the right support and professional development to understand how to develop the movement skills that are the basis for taking part in sport and physical activity safely, confidently and competently. And we need to make effective use of the networks that exist across sport as well. As many as members have mentioned, the member for Mid-Cheshire and Harlow in particular, that reference the big community that can exist around sport that supports its effective delivery within school as well. And to build on it, schools have to give further opportunities to play sport and take part in other activities. Indeed, the vast majority of schools offer extracurricular sport and physical activity, and the DfE School and College Panel Survey reported in 2023 that 99% of schools offered some sort of sport and physical activity of those surveyed. Schools games organisers play a crucial role in ensuring that all children can engage in accessible and inclusive sport and physical activity across the country. The network of 450 schools games organisers provided 2.3 million sporting opportunities in 2023 to 24 in the academic year, spanning 40 different sports and activities. We know the network ensures competitive opportunities are available for young people and empower them through pupil voice and leadership, offering young people the chance to co-create and to lead activities as well. The government recognises the impact of this network and has confirmed funding for the end of the 2024-25 academic year. We are exploring future models for school sport delivery, and we'll publish our findings in the coming months, because we do need to make sure that our future investment in sport is used as effectively as possible. But I can reassure members that the Schools Games Organisers Network is a hugely valued part of the sector, and we will be announcing funding shortly. More widely, the PE and sport premium should be used by eligible schools to make additional and sustainable improvements. The government has provided £320 million for PE and sport premium for the academic year 24 to 25, with over 18,000 eligible schools and around 3.9 million pupils benefiting from it. And we are very aware of the need to provide as much certainty as possible for schools, and we'll confirm further information on budgets for the next academic year just as soon as we can. So to conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, I do want to thank the member for Stafford and everyone who has contributed to what has been a really enjoyable debate today, but also a really important one. And I know we all share an appreciation of what PE and sport can do to transform children's lives, whether that's improving their health and well-being, instilling a sense of resilience, perseverance and achievement, and building skills like teamwork and leadership. And only by ensuring that every pupil in every school has access to high-quality PE are we truly investing in their future. And this government remains committed to breaking down the barriers that we know still exist for far too many children, and ensuring that these great sporting opportunities are truly available for every child in every community.
Leigh, Ingham to wind up.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I would like to thank all the members who came today to speak on this subject, and also the shadow spokespeople. It's been one of the most fun debates that I've taken part in. Interestingly, even though a lot of people in here, like myself, were not necessarily the most sporty at school, but the memories it's clearly evoked in many of us has been a real pleasure to listen to. So I would like to particularly thank the member for Beckenham and Penge, Thornbury and Yate, who prior to being elected, she and I did participate in some, where we were councillors together in South Gloucestershire, some sports activities, so it's nice to be able to recollect that memory. Mid-Cheshire, Reigate, Hertford and Stortford, Cannock Chase, Weston-super-Mare, Harlow, Lichfield, Cheltenham and Ealing Central and Acton. All of the members have brought really powerful memories of how important sports was to them at school, and I do thank the Minister for her commitments to the importance of this within the DfE, and I know that as soon as those funding arrangements can be confirmed, she will be in touch. As I said earlier in the debate, and as we've heard from members across the House, this isn't just about fitness or fun. It is about long-term health, resilience, and the success of our young people. And I thank everyone today for participating in this debate with that at the forefront of their minds.
The question is, as on the order paper, as many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.